It's the Hammer and Nigel show. Hello, my name is Nigel. Jason Hammer is here. One of the things that's completely disappeared from the national headlines in the current news cycle, and somewhat understandably so, I get it, there's a war with Iran, especially with the events that unfolded last night or didn't unfold. But one of the things that's completely disappeared is the case of Jeffrey Epstein, something we've been talking about on this show forever. We're never going to let it go. We're going to keep it on the forefront. And I just don't know if we'll ever see any justice for any of the victims. I don't know if we'll see any justice for the perpetrators. For that, we will go to JoDee Neil, child abuse expert and survivor. Thank you so much for joining us on the Hammer and Nigel show.
Thank you so much for the honor of being here, and to discuss this issue openly with you is truly a dream come true.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. Maybe just a little bit about your background before we get into it.
Sure. I grew up in a legal family. My dad was a trial lawyer. I grew up in the criminal courthouse, and I twice prosecuted crimes against children, which is a specialized discipline that trains the prosecutor how to present these cases to juries. I tried more than 100 cases to North Texas juries and learned a lot about perpetrators and professional expert testimony. But most importantly, I learned that the smallest among us are most often the bravest among us.
JoDee, tell me exactly where we are now, where the legal system is now with Jeffrey Epstein, the survivors of his abuse, and the other people that are walking around free that actually perpetrated that abuse.
What a great question. On this question, I want to highlight the glaring system failure that is spotlighted right now. In my opinion, there is plenty of reasonable suspicion contained in these files. We have access to 3.5 million pages of documents. Out of my understanding is about 6. And reasonable suspicion is the lowest burden that a detective would have to have in order to get a warrant for a cell phone or a computer of a perpetrator. It is enough to impanel a grand jury. The grand jury would then do a probable cause investigation, and those proceedings are secret. All of this could be investigated through grand jury subpoenas, grand jury testimony. There could be a team working these files, but my understanding is that there's not. In fact, my understanding is this has been openly stated that is not a priority for the administration. And so you are going to have millions, and I want you to just take this in, what I'm about to say. The most recent CDC data says that 57,748,000 American women have survived contact sexual violence in the United States, plus 1 in 6 men. Plus, we know that 25% of all little girls will be sexually abused before they turn 18. That's also a CDC statistic.
Wow.
So every single one of these victims is watching the complete inaction by the administration and feeling betrayed. And they're thinking to themselves, why would I ever tell?
Oh, yeah, multiple administrations. Now, do you know if there's been any compensation for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and what happened on that island? Has there been any monetary compensation? Not that I'm saying that absolves anybody of anything, but has there been any sort of compensation or retribution?
Yes, and to learn more about that, I would highly recommend picking up Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girl. I call her Saint Virginia because what she has done for all survivors across the world is nothing short of seismic. What happened is civil lawsuits were brought over time, and many of those settled in the early days, but also when Jeffrey Epstein perished, however it was it happened, his estate had a fund that had claimants. And my understanding is that non-disclosure agreements were most likely deployed And that's why we really have a pretty limited number of survivors who are openly advocating for additional release of the files. Now, non-disclosure agreements are becoming illegal on a national level, thanks to my friend Elizabeth Phillips and her work through trade law. But up until right now, I believe that there have been civil payments, which generally non-disclosure silence is the price you pay for whatever pittance you're able to obtain through a settlement or a fund.
Are there other countries that are more active in pursuing people that have taken advantage of what went on at Epstein Island, committed crimes against young girls on Epstein Island? I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about now other countries going after people from various places around the world.
Yes, sir. In France, they have raided a couple of private offices. The names of the actors being found in the Epstein files. Norway is under extreme scrutiny right now, their monarchy, due to being mentioned in the files. And I don't need to tell you about that famous picture of Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
I think it's very inspiring the way that they've handled this, because they actually used information from the Epstein files, exactly as I've described, using reasonable suspicion, probable cause, to implicate him for sort of like trade secrets. He would obtain special information through his position as a monarchy about business transactions, company sales, etc., high-level business stuff globally, and he would just forward those emails to Epstein, who then would act on the insider trading effectively to make his clients wealthy. And so I think there's a lot of crime in those files that needs to be looked at. And maybe if it's not a sex case to be pursued, it can be a financial crime, a white-collar crime. Even the banks have been held more accountable.
Yeah, and big picture here, we're speaking with JoDee Neil, a child abuse expert. You could find her work at neilnowlegal.com. I think the bigger picture here is that there are still people. We know there were crimes committed. We know we have victims. We know there were judgments in their favor. So, which also means that there are criminals walking around, I'm assuming very rich, very powerful criminals. Do you have a certain profile of the type of person and who was actually perpetrating these crimes against the young women?
That's a great question. In Epstein specifically, I believe that Epstein was a broker of child flesh. And I believe that was part of the reason to do business with Epstein, is because he would make arrangements with you, for you, to have whatever it was you wanted. And I believe that based largely on Virginia Giuffre's book. And she describes the level of perpetrator who Epstein associated with. And it's true. Epstein was not the guy who was hanging out with the Little League softball coach, the little girls soccer coach.
Right.
He was hanging out with, the prime minister of Israel at the time, or I hope I got that right. I don't want them to come find me. Hotel type owners. I mean, high level people. Bill Gates is in the files. Prince Andrew's in the files. And so I've come to believe that this is the new big game hunting for the ultra elite. We know the ultra wealthy do not like planned by average people laws. We know they think that rules don't apply to them, and that this would have been the equivalent of, going to Africa and bagging a big lion. And so I put nothing past anybody at this point.
Where do we go from here? I mean, how difficult is it to win a criminal prosecution? Especially, we're talking decades after the crimes. We know Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand woman, so to speak, who would procure some of these young women, befriend them and or groom them, going so far as to get her own pilot's license. She learned how to fly a helicopter so she herself could fly these girls to Epstein Island. How hard is it to win prosecutions decades after these crimes?
The burden of proof in any criminal court in the United States, from traffic court to federal court, is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And that is a burden of proof that is not 100%. It can be done. I did it when I was in my 20s. In Texas, you can prove a criminal case, and I have, using a child's testimony, one child alone beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, it's eyewitness, and we cannot let the criminals who choose the circumstances by which they're going to commit crimes and the extent to which they're going to leave behind evidence decide who gets prosecuted and who doesn't. If the jury believes the testimony of one witness beyond a reasonable doubt, then that is enough to support a conviction in the state of Texas. So it is not impossible. It's not nearly as impossible as the DOJ is making it out to be. And they keep saying, there wasn't enough evidence to support a conviction. That's not the analysis that needs to be made. Is there reasonable suspicion to launch a grand jury investigation? That's the question. And then let's do the grand jury investigation. If you don't think there's enough for a conviction right now from a bunch of half-redacted files, then let's actually investigate it, okay? Because the message that everyone in America and the world is getting right now is that our government is complicit in a cover-up. That is worst case scenario. Best case scenario is we don't have the resources to take on a billionaire who trafficked children. Who are we if we can't do something like that? We're the United States of America. This is our bailiwick, and we need to get to business.
Her book is called Outcry Witness. Her name is JoDee Neil, child abuse expert. If people would like to find out anything more about you or what you do, how can people get a hold of you?
Thank you so much. JoDeeNeil.com is also on the interwebs. I've been doing a lot of media. I have a podcast, Outcry Witness Unspoken. I would be happy to talk to anyone who is personally involved with this crime. And, I'm talking to survivors, and this is my mission, is to clear some evil out of this world while I'm alive.
God bless you, JoDee Neil. Thank you so much for taking the time, and please give us any updates you have in the near future. We'd love to have you back on.
I sure will, anytime. Keep my cell phone number.
It's the Hammer and Nigel Show.